Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 185 of Kouryer podcast. Our today's guest is Miss Kayla Martell. She's an oil painter based in Wicklow, Ireland. And well, with that quick, introduction out of the way, let me just quickly mention that in the for contact section in the captions, you can find her Instagram ID as well if you want to give her a follow and usually follow her artworks. And also, most importantly, the link to our website, which, why do I say that's important? Because in there you can see more of her artworks, her upcoming exhibitions. And for anyone who's interested in purchasing an artwork from her, you can check the AFQ section to check all the infos about that, about the commissions, how the price is, the postal, there's just everything clearly and simply explained there. If you're interested, you can check it out. Honestly, yeah, they look awesome. And speaking of merch and stuff, there are a lot of artists that I've actually brought on the show. They all, of course, they have their merch and stuff to sell. And one day, of course, I still live in a cramped studio apartment, but hopefully in 10 or 15 years, when I actually have my home and business and I'm stable and I can have my own house, I want to have a room and just make it my achievements room and buy merch from all the guests that were previously on the podcast, so I can have a piece of their art in there as well, And so, yeah, I will honestly, I'm not joking. You can even, maybe in 7-8 years when I have this piece of what I said on the podcast as evidence, I will do that. By the way, I will buy a piece from you as well in the future. Hopefully everything was fine. And yeah, sure. So with that quick introduction, of course, out of the way, let's go to the first signature question of the podcast, which I ask everyone. Give us a little introduction how we got into the world of visual arts and design. Basically, what is the story of, for you, the story of, that moment that made you realize, oh, I want to become an artist, So how the journey has been for you, the origin point and everything?
Sure, yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I'm originally from Canada, and I moved to Ireland in my 20s, and I had never drawn or done anything. I did not have a background in visual arts prior to coming to Ireland. Once I came here, I do tend to pick up a lot of hobbies. I play, fiddle for Irish music. I'm not particularly good at other ones, but I like to try new things. And I had in my head that I wanted to try painting. And so I was at Super Value, which is a grocery chain in Ireland. And they have one of those paper flyers that you can pull a number off of. And it said just art courses. So I grabbed one of those numbers and texted the lady who ran just some little art studio and showed up for my first painting class in this beautiful countryside of Ireland, this outside a church, just gorgeous sheep on the landscape, just beautiful. Me and a bunch of older ladies there are kind of all just, learning to paint really. And that was my first time ever with oils or really drawing or doing art at all. And I wasn't sure initially. I just thought, I like a lot of things. This is probably another thing that I really like, but I don't think I stopped painting since probably that day. So, I guess that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Do you know why? Because it's so raw and simple. Your story, it was completely out of genuine interest of doing it. Because of course, a lot of people you see, especially these days, which I'm not judging, by the way, that much, but here's the thing. A lot of people that want to get into art or anything, especially recently because of the whole, I don't want to get into that too much, but because of the whole NFT stuff, it's so obvious that a lot of people are just in it for money. And they don't even understand. They put on this front of toxic positivity that they're part of a community, but no, they're just selling out and making soulless art, which, yeah, I guess I'm judging people. Yeah. But no, I'm not going to take that back. Because it's true, honestly. It's there's few people that I've had on the podcast that I'm actually a huge fan of their works as well, because I know that even if they weren't financially set right now, they would have still done it, and their work actually has soul, and it's always obvious, when you see that in the work of an artist. And not just, by the way, not just the NFT stuff, you also see a lot of people like art, but they, for example, try to engineer their path to stability in that field. That is such a technically sometimes you have to take in consideration different aspects of the options you have in front of you, but all in all, when you want to engineer AI is taking over concept artwork, these thoughts when you have, and you try to engineer your way to accessibility, that's wrong, you know, because if you really love something, you would do it, you know, you would,
Yeah.
no excuse.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say, oh, they're going to take my job, a robot like AI is going to take my job, or not just that. Like, for example, oh, I love character art, but I'm not going to do character art because getting into industry with environmental art is easier. I can maybe understand that in some emergency scenarios if you're really like decide you really have to get a job and you want it to be isolated and you kind of have to choose between bad and like, you know, worse and worse. But even you see that in a lot of especially young people, and yeah, especially young people usually when they don't, and not just young people, anyone basically who haven't broken into the industry, that they try to engineer their picks and like just the only thing you need is to do what you love. And that sounds really cheesy and cliche. I know, but that's really the only way to key to actually making interesting, pleasant, like nice to look art. And for example, in your works, you know, I mean, of course, you mentioned before we got on the podcast that, you know, one of the interesting things that really caught my eye with your work is you kind of using a relatively traditional classic medium, but your subjects are relatively modern, you know? And that's usually something rare, and it's a trend that's happening. Like, another example I can tell you that recently I saw an artist who did a charcoal painting of a really well-rendered mech, like a battle mech. No one does that, but he did it, and it was so cool. Like, it was so amazing. I love this stuff. I think people should experiment like this, honestly. Even 3D artists, I think, should experiment with, like, you know, actual clay or paper mache or something, because like I'm the main thing I'm trying to break into. Actually, I'm an amateur, by the way. Like, I haven't broken into anything, you know. Just I'm just a student of, you know, the game still. And the thing is, I want to break into 3D. I love 3D artwork. It's something that I think I have a talent at compared to 2D stuff. And a funny story, actually. One time, a pipe of, you know, in these apartment complexes, usually every, like, you know, flats, pipes, and just everything is connected together. My, like, you know, upper floor neighbor's pipe had a problem, and basically my apartment was getting flooded. And it was close to getting flooded, but I quickly noticed and we got it fixed. And so I had to put a pot under the pipe, and the pipe would just get filled up, you know? So I had to just smoosh a bunch of, like, toilet paper in the pot as well, so it would absorb and it would just make it late for it to get up. And I had to sleep in that, and I had to, you know, sleep in that scenario, and it was so annoying. But I finally fell asleep out of tiredness. Next morning, I woke up, I picked up the pot, and there was a huge mess of toilet paper, and I was so pissed that I had to waste this much. Then, out of just anger and boredom, I started to, you know, massage the toilet papers and forming them into a mesh. And I was like, this is a mesh base mesh. And I finished that, and I turned it to a head. I turned it to a head sculpture. I was like, wow. Then later on, a week later, on my way back from class, I bought 4 acrylic paints and 2 brushes. And I was so dumb, and I didn't buy a color thinner because I ruined one of my actual drinking glasses because I was putting like, you know, the water where you dilute the brush. Yeah. And it was so fun. It was just genuine, like, you know, curiosity, you know, and creativity out of just randomness. You know, I didn't, like, you know, decide to, I want to go to, like, do sculpting. I need to go to class. I need to do this. No, just, you know, you just basically shoot the shit and just do what you love, you know?
Yeah,
anything that interests you. And sorry, I went on a bit of a rant. So, yeah, I tended to do that a lot. But, so...
I really want to see this paper mache or toilet paper mache.
Actually, I can grab it right now if you give me, like, a couple of seconds. You want me?
I do want to see it.
All right, just give me a second. I'll actually do it, all right? All right, everyone, audio listeners, wait for, like, 10-15 seconds. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, and guess what I brought with me? Ta-da!
That's awesome.
like honestly, yeah. Wait, let me get it close up. Like this, I know it sounds kind of like nightmare fuel, but
yeah,
wait,
it is terrifying, but awesome.
Whatever angle is looking at you. Why? I just noticed this. My God, I made the cursed object. But honestly, I liked how it came out. Like, I even did like abstract stuff on it. I'm kind of happy with the result.
That's very cool.
And yeah. So yeah, I mean, wow, this is actually terrifying. Let me just put it this way. And so yeah, that was the paper mache thing. And but yeah, honestly, to be honest, I'm not saying this like as just to be nice, but I loved your story. It was so simple and raw. Just it was no complexities around it. It was no dilly dallying over different stuff. It was just I want to do art. That's it. And
Yes.
it should be that way too. And I'm sure during all this, by the way, how many years have you been doing art?
Let's see, be 3 years. I'm actually pretty new at it. I had some very early success, and I was very lucky and got very successful. Not very successful, but I was successful early on. So
yeah, that's awesome. And I wanted to even ask this because for everyone who listening, whatever you're doing, if you go find and you do really what you like and you consistently get good at that thing, whether it be, I'm not just saying necessarily oil painting, but it's not just a medium, it's also your niche, the things you like, the personal things that you really enjoy, the genres, and you get good at that thing and style, people will take notice. And when that happens, more and more opportunities will just come by, because of work that shows that someone who actually likes doing what they're doing, whether in comparison to someone who's just doing it to get a chance to get a collector's attention, to get, 5 Ethereum for something, And just don't chase money. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I know it sounds weird in this day and age because the way our society is constructed, we need to actually get money, I guess, unfortunately. But as scary and risky as it sounds, don't chase money, chase what you love. And yeah, just opportunities will show themselves. Because I've seen a lot of selling out, honestly, from different artists, in the whole NFT boom thing, and that's kind of sad because if they put a heart and passion and soul into doing what they love, maybe make a merch design, or t-shirt design or something with their projects, maybe make an indie video game with their art style instead of wasting their time trying to get attention of these collectors who don't know anything about art, But I mean, listen, I'm not really mad because time will eventually sort everything out, The truth will always, I guess, as cliche and cheesy as it sounds, it always, stands out. That's a test of time, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, actually, you also mentioned something that, of course, we know now that you're not from an art background and you started art when you were in Ireland. But before that, what were you doing, or did you study actually? Or even before that, during those times, were there sparks of wanting you to do art?
Well, I did a Bachelor of Software Engineering and worked as a software architect. And was there anything that wanted to do art? I look back now and I think, yes. I didn't really recognize at the time. I create web applications, and a lot of that has user interface design, of course. And I'd be very focused on the user experience, and that's very much design orientated. And I think that was kind of a bit of an outlet for some of the creativity, I suppose, the artwork I do now in a different fashion, of course. It's entirely different. I almost want to be like, no paintings, don't listen. you are not my user interface. It's such a different thing. But yeah, and I had this memory too. I think this is what actually probably got me to thinking about starting painting. Is I had this memory of just very young. I don't know, 12, and just in my room, got my mom's acrylic paints and was just painting for some reason. I don't know why. I was just bored and thought I'll grab some paints and try this picture of a girl that was, I think, on the internet or something. And in my head, it was like amazing. Now, of course, it was absolutely terrible. I have no idea what it actually looks like. I don't know where this painting has gone. But in my head, this was such a lovely experience. And I suppose that I had that in my head when I started getting into painting again. And yeah.
You're the third person in the last 2 weeks that I've had on the show that their background was mainly software engineering, and that's fascinating to me.
Yep.
The first one was Sanguine. He's an illustrator, but that goes by the name of Sanguine. I don't know if you know him. And the second one was Stefanie Grunwald. She's a pixel artist, and she started art actually as at 30, and she's a senior software engineer at Adobe. Like she's actually just like really good programmer actually that she did art, and she's actually super relatively like, she improved a lot in art as well in the 4 or 5 years that she's been doing it, honestly. And yes, actually shout out to Stefan Grunwald and Sanguine as well. And by the way, for anyone who's listening and interested in this stuff, I always sometimes say the date of the recording. Today is 12th of July. Right now for me in Istanbul is 8:33 p.m. What time is it for you there?
6:33.
Oh, that explains the sun and everything are behind you. I was like, because I mistake that you're actually 2 hours after me, but no, you're before me. That's interesting. Yeah. And yes, probably if you guys listening or watching this episode, it's probably 26th of August. So I hope, you're all doing great. It's like talking to future. It's kind of weird right now, but yeah, they're staying safe. And yeah, all that good stuff, all the good vibes. And okay, so speaking of, I want to ask you something else. Of course, in the introduction, I mentioned that you're an oil painter, but I mean, it's obvious even from your artworks. I mean, sometimes I have to ask this question because I have a lot of concept artists in the show, because there's so many like different branches of concept art that we get into. But yeah, that's why I said that. But I want to ask you this. How did you find your niche, and why are you interested in the niche of the subjects of painting you're doing? Because that's a really interesting topic to me, as well, of course, we discussed before recording as well.
And the question, why am I interested in the subjects that I'm painting, the compositions? Is that it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Well, I think that I'm still exploring what it is I want to paint. I think the main thing that I like about picking a composition is just the idea that you can see something and be really inspired by it and grab paints and go. And when I first started painting, there was a lot more of putting compositions together, simple subjects, oranges and lemons. I mean, I don't think they're simple at all in some ways. I think there's a whole lot there, but arranging those and just focusing on what's the most important thing about those compositions. What is the balance between your values, dark, medium, and light? It's not really about the things; it's about the abstract look of them. So to have, say, 70% of the composition made up by a dark value, and 30% or 20% made up by medium, and then a bit of light. It's the arrangement of those key three shapes, I suppose, that draws the eye to the composition. A composition that's just in the same value is not very interesting. So that would be for, I suppose, initial compositions of, a lot of the fruit and items that I've done. But then a lot more recently, I suppose, in the last 6 months and last year, it's more just kind of the light. I'm painting more from natural light and how light looks off of objects, how light turns objects, what is revealed by light bouncing off of objects. Like specifically, the one that was very popular was a sink that I did with the window light. And just looking at that in the morning, there's a beautiful blue light that comes through that bathroom. I don't know why that bathroom has such blue light, but it's a beautiful, gorgeous blue light bouncing through the window in the morning that just highlights everything. And it's capturing that light is like an obsession that's just kind of grows and grows and grows. So, yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's my thoughts on it.
All right. No, actually, you answered it perfectly. And there's just something else that I want to, it just came to my mind. Of course, as I mentioned in the beginning, in the FAQ section on your website, there's like, every single question related to, the pricing and shipping and everything of your pieces. But there's something else that should be added, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Because some of your artworks, the artworks that get, popular on social media, I think they should have a different set of, don't formulate it, because you have the opportunity to, get, bigger collectors. I mean, of course, like if you have, your set of principles and ideals and you still want to stick to that, I genuinely respect that. But of course, there will be nothing wrong with, wanting to add an abstract price to one of your pieces. It's your work, it's your rules. Whoever doesn't like it, doesn't buy it. Whoever likes it, buys it, But honestly, like for example, and the reason, in my opinion, like for example, the post, of course, which I think you can already tell which one I'm going to talk about, the one you pinned, the one that has an astronomical number of likes on it, and and I think honestly, this is my personal take, by the way. I think the reason that it really got popular is because the lighting and colors really are balancing each other out really well, and like technically, you've really done work on that, in my opinion. And not just that, the subject is something that, as I mentioned, is a relatively abstract concept and subject. You don't really see that being drawn in like oil painting that much, especially because it's like a piece of a slice of life of a modern bathroom, you know? Who does that in oil painting? No one. But when you do that and you put the feel and mood into it, it's something that everyone kind of relate, like in a, like, I don't know, it could be a piece of a kitchen or a bathroom. It's everything we all, you know, live in. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the main reasons that it got super popular. I mean, of course, rightful so. Like, for example, that, I don't know if you saw that, but I think it should be charged way more than, you know, whatever you're going to charge for it based on a formula. And you have every right to do that, you know? Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, on why the painting is popular?
Yep.
It's a mystery to me sometimes because it's not like my favorite one I've ever done. Do you know what I mean? Obviously it was much popular than my other paintings that I've done. I suppose all the things that you've said, a lot of people said really nice comments. Everyone's really lovely, I have to say. And, yeah, and it's funny because I was actually just testing out the canvas on that one. I got this new canvas supplier from Romania, actually, that's bringing them in. And he just gave me this big canvas, and I was supposed to test it out. And I thought, I'm just going to do a big painting. And I didn't do like any composition studies. I didn't, you know, do a smaller version first. It was a larger, I think it was like 50 by 60 is the canvas size, which is much larger than I would normally paint, probably twice as large. So I just was arranging things in the bathroom. I like to arrange things like in the interior, just decorate. And I was just putting some plants around that I had recently bought from the garden center and thought that it was just really lovely with the light that day. And so added a few more plants and, you know, took a step back and was like, I think I'm going to paint this on the canvas with just no prep and just went for it, you know? And, yeah, and I was like, oh, wait, that's the one. That's the one that took basically like no composition studies, no prep, just was what I really wanted to paint that day. That was the one that everyone likes. So, but yeah, I don't know.
All right. And the thing is, oh my God, my memory has actually recently been getting really foggy, and I just, oh my God, wait, I'm gonna remember this. Hold on a second. What was I gonna say? Oh. All right, I think I'm starting to remember the chain of the thoughts that I had. Oh, one of my favorite, that is actually my second favorite painting of yours, the bathroom one. My favorite thing that I would actually buy if I could was the ship one, the red, white, and blue ship one, you know, that you made, I think it's called Brandy, yeah.
Oh, the ship one.
Yeah, I don't know, for some reason, that's something I would probably hang on my living room or room something. I kind of like the colors and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's funny because I did think that was a bit more of like a male audience one. Not necessarily the ship, though obviously I'm at the Wicklow port here often and the men there are so funny, they just love their ships. But I think the colors, like it's not very colorful. Do you know what I mean? It's very muted, it's very neutral, it's very dark. It's not a high key painting, meaning just for anyone listening, that it's not painted on a value range that is closer to white. It's much closer to dark. And I think, to my total biased opinion, I feel like men tend to prefer lower key paintings and don't prefer as much chromatic colors, I suppose. I don't know. That's a very sexist opinion, so I apologize.
No, it's fine. No. I think the reason it might be like male oriented, that piece, is because of the ship, honestly. So, like I guess men are very simple creatures, honestly. Like, you know, we like ships. When we go to the beach, we like to dig holes for no reason. We like to look at airplanes. Like, I don't know, it's just simple stuff like that. Yeah, but honestly, it looks. I don't know, for some reason it just looks good. Like,
yeah. I had a great time painting it, so I was listening to actually listening to sea shanties the entire time, so, and just having a little delight. So I love ships, I love ports. I don't paint them, but I absolutely love them. So it was great
harbors, fun. Yeah, I get it. I get what you mean. And there's like thinking about this stuff. I love actually like one of my favorite things when talking with guests is talking about the philosophy of why a piece gets popular, why the piece gets like that. Just basically philosophy of art, I love talking about this stuff. And and wait, which one is your favorite one, by the way? Your favorite piece ever?
My favorite piece ever. I think probably the other bathtub painting. But I often like pieces more just for the experience I have painting them. Sometimes paintings can turn out just fine, but maybe they were very frustrating to paint, or I doubted myself, along the way, that kind of thing. And the first bathtub I did is much smaller. It was probably the first interior. Well, it wasn't the first interior, but I just felt something clicked in that one, I suppose, when I did that initially. The way the light was coming in that day, I just felt great painting it, and I really just love that one. But
the Lost in a Book one or the Blue Picture one?
The blue picture, that's the one. Yeah. I know. I'm vaguely referencing something in my head. So yeah,
no, it's fine. Don't worry, I have your Instagram open on a tab. Like, I can check everything in a jiffy. Don't worry. And just wondering, do you take your references, like, do you take pictures of them and then start drawing them, or do you just sit there and set up your canvas and stuff?
Yeah, no, I always paint from life. I feel like it's like,
interesting.
If you paint from a photo, not if you paint from a photo, but for me, painting from a photograph is like just painting from a dead body or something, like,
Oh God,
like it just, I don't know. There's something like being I just don't want to, like, it's not like, I don't like my work from it. I don't like looking at a screen. There's something about being there and like feeling the light. Like right now I'm painting my bathtub and it's half filled with water because I really just am obsessed with the bathtub. I love painting the bathtub. And there's like the drip, drip, drip of water and the like light kind of flickering to the clouds. And it's like, that's a feeling that I do not experience in a photograph. Not to say that other people can't make people experience that from a photograph, but just I don't feel that when I'm looking at a photograph as I do in real life. So that's why I paint from life. It's just more fun for me. I just enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot more. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Because I was thinking that, I mean, that kind of stems from the fact that you started with plein air. Because of course, in that whole field, literally plein air is the name of it. You have to be outside, and do things live. And honestly, like, I agree with you on that. But I was just thinking, if you actually want to be actually improve yourself as an artist, you shouldn't use like photo references, because it's kind of like cheating when it comes to composition, because you can literally track down the composition, like the relative place of every object in the scene from a photo. I mean, that's so easy. But when you have to look and adjust everything in your head and brain and have this imaginary thing, it gets much more complicated, and it's harder. Yes. And of course, by the way, don't take me out of context. I'm saying this in the context of oil painting and just traditional mediums. Of course, if you're doing for digital art, that's a different story. Even with digital art, I mean, you can have your tablet and do things live, but you get the point.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
All right. The next question is kind of pretty interesting. So I'm assuming the first ever paycheck you ever got out of art was when you started doing oil paintings, right?
Yes.
All right, and what piece was it? Can you tell us a story about it?
It was called because the gallery renamed it after I named it. It was called When Life Gives You Lemons, Make Coffee, but then they just called it like Lemons and Coffee. I guess it was too long for the site, but that one sold. So I guess that was my first official paycheck at the Doorway Gallery. The Doorway Gallery is a gallery in the heart of Dublin, and like I was saying before, I got very lucky, and before my first year painting, they had contacted me and found my paintings and wanted to just display my art, and I was thrilled with that, and then that one sold a month later, and I couldn't believe I sold my first painting and got my first money for painting. So yeah, that was then of course I was sweating buckets because I was sure the person would return it, but they didn't. They kept it. So yeah, that was the first money I made. Yeah.
Is there any I understand there should be some return policy on stuff like this for galleries, because maybe, I don't know, something, an emergency happens in the buyer's life and they have to quickly sell everything to get some money. That could be an abstract scenario, but all of that abstract stuff aside, why would anyone return something? Would they have a change of heart? Are they Like, I don't get it.
None of my thoughts are ever logical. I just immediately go to the worst case scenario and everything, and then talk myself off the cliff from there. So I'm sure people don't return art. I'm sure that's not even a thing. But in my head, it was, of course, a certainty. But I'm over that now.
All right, awesome. And all right, now we can talk about an interesting topic and subject here, which we kind of discussed beforehand before we started recording, which was the subject of simplification in painting. And in your opinion, what does that mean exactly? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. This is probably one of my favorite topics with oil painting, or any kind of drawing or painting, because you have a whole load of information in front of you. And especially if you're painting plein air or even painting from life, you want to get it down quickly. But also beyond just the time constraint, being able to condense that much information is really valuable in making sure that what you're saying is clear. There's artists that do really detailed paintings, and there's artists that do much more abstracted paintings. Like Maggie Steiner is one of my favorite artists, and she's able to reduce very complicated things like a red dress laying on a bed with folded sheets and all of this. And with just a few brush strokes, you know exactly what you're looking at because of that simplification. And I think one of the interesting ways of thinking about it, I think, it's just like when you're looking out, like the field behind me or whatever, like your eyes just have the ability to zoom in on so much detail. There's horses back there. I can go in, my eyes can go look at the horse that's, I don't know, a mile away, know that it's a mane, a hair, hooves, like it's extrapolating all kinds of information, But when you can zoom in and get as much information as you possibly want. Your eyes have the ability to do that. But what you really want to do is just capture the scene. It's not about, the tail swishing on the horse 100 miles away. It's about looking at the distance. That's probably what you're talking about when you're looking at a field. The concept of distance, the general shapes, and I think that this is just one of the most important things for painting. Even if you do a really detailed painting, it has to have these building blocks of simplification of the large values. Like, I think one example someone sent me was like a carton of strawberries and just wanted some feedback on their painting. And it was a nice painting. But the carton had light coming from one side of it, or supposedly had light coming from one side. It was being lit from one side. But there's all this detail on the carton. You imagine like a cardboard carton has like little cracks and maybe a stain of strawberry juice and is, crunched on one side, and like all these little things that make up, like when you zoom in with your eyes, just like the horse, make up all this detail that is just on one little thing of the carton. But the whole point of the carton is that it has a side and it has a back to it, and it is a, kind of like a cube. And this was missed because of all the detail. So when all this detail was added on one side of the carton, it no longer had a light side and it no longer had a dark side, which means that it's not 3D on a 2D canvas. So I suppose when this term simplification is used a lot, it doesn't mean you can't add detail, but that the detail she added in the light side of the carton had to stay in the light side. So your lights need to stay in the light side of the object, and your darks need to live in the dark side of the object. And if these two start interacting, then it's very confusing to the viewer. So whether you want to add the detail or not in the carton doesn't matter, as long as the light side and the dark side are clear. And yeah, that's basically my thoughts on simplification.
All right. And aside from type of like a slice of life style type of subjects you have, do you have any future different subjects in mind? Like haven't been done that much, because this was a topic that we briefly kind of went over as well before we start. Mm-hmm. So are there any subjects in your mind aside from this in the future?
Like compositions to tackle,
yes.
Painting subjects.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm just like basically slowly moving myself outside. Like every day I get just like one step farther away from my house. So right now I'm working with like just some setups, just literally in my patio under an umbrella, which is very comfortable for me, but just uncomfortable enough to be challenging. And I think I just like to take more surreal paintings, I suppose, or the Lost. I think there's the book, the painting you referenced, Lost in a Book, I think is what I called it. I really like that concept. That was probably also one of my favorite paintings, because in capturing, I suppose, like the feeling of, it's hard to kind of say what I was thinking of that painting. I was really into this ACOTAR series when I was painting it, like a fantasy series I was reading, really into it. And like, that just invokes a certain feeling, you're absorbed in like a world, characters, like they're half on your mind, even when you're not reading them, and I just think that composition felt like that to me when I was putting it together. Anyways, that's what I was thinking of, I would just think of these characters really, and this kind of like dreamy state that you can be in. And so I guess I just want to paint more like that, more invoking these feelings in everyday compositions. And yeah, that's probably a bad answer, but that's my thoughts.
All right, awesome. And yeah, I mean, I recently even found some like artists who are not necessarily oil painters; they're digital artists, but they're mediums. I guess, I don't know. In the end, when you're a youngster, you want to get into the latest tech of whatever medium out there. But when you actually get into it for a long time, you start to like slowly, without realizing, you start to gravitate towards those warm, kind of, I don't know, sometimes a little bit more, not grungy. Grunge is not a good verb to use right now. Good adverb, sorry, to use right now. Just gonna warm, more homey vibes of like medium traditions, because the two artists that I just mentioned, like, they try to emulate like oil painting or acrylic painting with digital, and their work is really good and nice, like to look at. Like, one of them did like a kind of like this composition of like a red light stop in like a New York City, and that the lights and everything, it looked so well, and I really liked that. And it wasn't like a acrylic type style. And yeah, there's something about these mediums. And one of my favorite, of course, oil painters that I had. All right, as you can imagine, this is not a new trend in the Kouryer podcast. Sometimes we have to do cuts, maybe something happens and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're suddenly, experience a cut during the podcast, it's that we have to cut, then to start recording again. But hey, we're back. So yeah, as we were saying, we've reached the next question now, which is actually one of the most intriguing questions that which I ask people, which is, who are some of your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned Maggie Signer, who I just think is incredible. She's an oil painter, and very much captures, I think, things that I would love to paint, just things around the house. A view of a bed in the morning with light coming through the window, things like that. But she does it in such like large, juicy brush strokes, very specific, very exact, thinking a lot about the direction of the brushwork, thinking a lot about the temperature of the light, the temperature of the shadows. How do you, feel that this is morning coming through a bedroom, for instance? And yeah, her brushwork is just incredible and very inspiring. So yeah, Maggie Signer. And Haiti Jo Summers is a plein air artist in the UK that I absolutely love. She has 2 books, and they're both fantastic. And I like her for a lot of the same reasons. She's really nice brushwork, really beautiful, capturing the light in a totally different way than Maggie Signer. And of course, Sarah Sedgwick is what was my mentor for a year. And I love her work, and took a lot of inspiration from her work as well. And then finally, Rob Poynton and Todd Casey. Todd Casey is a still life artist who I've done workshops with. He's just brilliant. His modeling is fantastic, and I learned a lot from how he models different objects. And Rob Poynton, I have not done a workshop with. Hopefully I will very soon at Art in the Open here in Ireland. But I just think his plein air work is absolutely just incredible. Absolutely incredible. So I'm looking forward to seeing him paint. And yeah, that's a few. there's lots more, but that's, not to spend the entire time listing artists, but yeah.
I mean, of course, like, one of those things is that artists are not tend to be like really good with memories with names, but they're visual people, So yeah, if you don't really remember names, don't feel bad. That's how most guests usually feel. And the next thing is, what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? I mean, of course, if you're working on a project that has NDA, I mean, sure, we can skip right past this question, which actually happens a lot on the podcast, surprisingly. But if that's not the case, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, I'm just doing whatever I want to paint.
That's actually such a nice answer. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just love that answer. I just have to say that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I almost wish I had like more of like a direction or something, but because sometimes I just feel like I just like a dog just constantly following like scents or something, but I'll have a whole idea. Like a week ago, I was sure that I want to try the piano again because I really love playing the piano and I just like pianos. But then every day I just got up and the sun was just gorgeous here. And, my backyard just looked so lovely. And there was all these little setups, a beautiful teal. I didn't post it or anything, but there was just a teal cup of tea that I took out and put in the sun on an orange chair. It was a complimentary color set and just this gorgeous, like flickering morning light. So I was obsessed with painting that a few days ago. It was cloudy here today. So I did start this morning painting the bathtub again, which is definitely something I think I mentioned that I just love painting. It's really very much a go-to. And so right now I'm about 3/4 of the way done to bathtub painting. Like I said, I do paint from life, but sometimes I run out of time. So I'll pick it up tomorrow. Hopefully it's a cloudy day as well with the same light coming through the window. And yeah.
All right. Awesome. And all right, you've spoken a bit about like, your hobbies. You seem to be a person who has interest in a lot of stuff, which like, here's the thing there are like three major cliches that I've seen. There are people who usually like, just, which are the like cute rare ones who know what they want to do from an early age, which great for them. I'm kind of jealous of them. There are another group, the two other majority groups. One of them is they don't know what they like, and they have some interest, but they don't know what they like. But there's another group that I fall under, and of course everything is on a spectrum. By the way, it's not like all black and white. There's a group that I think both of us like fall into, which is we kind of like everything, but we don't know which one to pick, and sometimes we get lucky to kind of clear our thoughts and actually pick something and go on with it. And I think you're someone who also has a lot of hobbies and like interests like that. And that is like, now I want to ask you this: what do you have besides the area you're working on right now, would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? I mean, that's the thing I want to ask you. Like, aside from everything you've done by now, what are the things you have in mind?
Honestly, nothing. Just painting. I have done a lot of things. I am somebody who wanted to try a bunch of things, but I think I'm pretty good at being average at things. That's like, was my superpower. I'm pretty good at just picking new things up, and just because I'm an obsessive person, I'll just practice and I'll get to like an average level at a lot of things, And so I'm like a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and I played baseball for many years. Like I've done a lot of things, never like particularly great at any of them. But I think just always kind of like looking for like that thing, just kind of like searching like what is the thing? Like I want to have a thing, and then I just thought, maybe I don't have a thing. Maybe my thing is just a lot of stuff,
Exactly.
And then, and then I found painting, and I thought it was just going to be another thing, but it was very clear early on that it was not. It's like a religion to me. So I know what I want to do for the rest of my life, and that is just paint as much as humanly possible in every minute of every day. And so I have no other plans. My plan is just to keep painting, and like every time I paint, it's a new adventure. I learn more. It's like a first date. Like that's what I think about actually a lot. Like, you almost feel a bit nervous. There's the subject in front of you. You want to capture it. It's going well. Then maybe it's not. Oh no, and then eventually at the end, it just, it appears, and it's like a little bit of magic, like a drug. And I suppose like that's what I'm like living for, and I want to like reproduce that as much as possible. So it's very addictive, and I feel like I just don't have enough years in this planet to get to where I want to get with painting. So, I guess unfortunately, maybe just painting. But that's all I have for now.
Honestly, I couldn't just help that your answer actually put it like a huge smile on my face. I love that answer. Honestly, it's just how genuine and raw your attitude towards artists. I really love that. I wish more people were like that, honestly. Not just to art, like it's just anything they love, you know. And one of the biggest misconception is you from the very beginning. You know what you like. You might be interested in some things, but you're not going to develop that passion unless you actually put in the early works, you know, and see that first bit of motivation. And people don't like, you know, putting in the work because it's hard, it's boring, and I get that. Like, I don't. I'm just trying to be judged, and I get that. You know, I'm kind of like that myself. And yeah. And by the way, I have found another thing that we have in common. We both trained jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
I was
awesome.
in jiu-jitsu as well. And yeah, I wait. You know what? I want to ask you about your jiu-jitsu. Actually, you know, how did I want to about? This is an art podcast, but I want to ask you about jiu-jitsu as well. You know, so when did you start? Like, you know, how and where did you start? Like, tell me about your jiu-jitsu journey as well, because I'm interested in that.
Sure, yeah. I started, I think, just at the end of university, finishing software engineering. So maybe 10 years ago or so, at Bruckman's Martial Arts in Canada. And I had done a bit of Taekwondo, just kind of like dabbled. Like I knew I liked hitting things. I just wasn't sure in what variety. And so I just dabbled in a few different kind of schools, and then came to jiu-jitsu. And, you know, jiu-jitsu is very much like a club and a family. And yeah, and then did that for a number of years, and did a couple competitions, got my butt kicked real bad in the first one, and then won the second, but I didn't win it that well. But yeah, I got a blue belt, so I think I did about 4 years in the end, and then just ran its course, you know, moved to Ireland and thought, Jesus, there's a lot of sweaty men here. and I just was, you know, my body just hurt from it. I think, you know, I just felt a bit older or something, and I just, you know, was really just not bouncing back. So, well, maybe I wasn't willing to feel the pain as much as I used to, and moved on to other things, I suppose. But I mean, I still love it. I still miss that feeling. Like it's like a great memory, you know. And I just wish I could feel the same way I used to feel about it. So,
yeah, exactly. And for me, honestly, like the way it happened was I've always loved, you know, martial arts and stuff. And actually, like, fun fact, you know, the first 2 years that I was in Istanbul, this is my 3.5 year now, I had art on the side. Like, I was barely paying attention. I was full on. I wanted to become a professional, like, submission grappler and martial artist, you know, MMA fighter, you know. And I put so much work in that I'm actually mostly, I guess, not from art background like you as well. Of course, I had interest, you know, from the beginning, but, you know, circumstances and environments, you know. And long story short, I got really deep into it. I got even relatively good at it compared to since I'm a white belt still, by the way. I didn't get promoted at all, but I was rolling always with blue belts and purple belts. Like, the only reason I could do that because my attack is really bad. My offense is really bad in jiu-jitsu. Like, it's normal, below average, I would even say, like, just confident, but my defense is really good comparatively. And like, even because, like, do you know Lachlan Giles? Sorry, I mispronounced his name. The third bronze medalist at ADCC 2019.
I don't follow it anymore.
Oh yeah, like he basically got the third place in ADCC 2019. Gordon Ryan got first, I think. I don't remember the second place. That's kind of weird. But yeah, he became number 3 in jiu-jitsu, and even he's from Australia. His wife is also like a black belt as well. She was like a petite, like, you know, short, really cheerful, positive lady. And but she kicked all our asses because in Istanbul he had a seminar like in 2020, like Long Giles, and he came here. We rolled with them, and the preparation of that, our coach kind of made us like learn all the leg locks variants and everything just to prepare us for that, because it's a really sensitive, like, you know, field to learn. You could easily injure people like really bad. And yeah, that came, and she was just like really lightweight, short, like a smiling woman, but she kicked every one of us, even my coaches.
Yeah,
like, you know. Yeah, you get the point. And it was really interesting. You know, jiu-jitsu really is an interesting thing. And other artists that I had on the show who were also practicing jiu-jitsu was Rachel and Noah Bradley. And the thing is, the reason I kind of left it as well was because to keep it, yeah, I keep saying I keep it short, but I'm just ranting. Sorry. Yeah, basically there were so many egos involved in the gym, and the people there weren't really genuine and passionate about what they're doing. They were just out of their own gains, and there were so many egotistical assholes that would show up, and no one would stand up for you that much. Even the people you might call teammates or friends. So yeah, long story short, immaturity. I left that. I cut all contacts with them. And, usually when you kind of sometimes want to cut contacts with someone, you don't necessarily, of course, when you're younger, you might show that you hate them. You might message them. And when they message you, say, hey, don't talk to me, stuff like that. But when you really mature, you try to not show that you dislike them. So you wouldn't engage in any interaction with them. And I became like that with them. And I'm happier than ever, without going there, Of course, that if any opportunity arises, that's something that I really am passionate about. Just fighting. It's kind of like chess to me, the same way I like chess, like, fighting, combat sports. I'm not afraid. Like, I just go in with anyone, and I don't even care if I lose 100 times. It's just fun, honestly. But because of that, I kind of got injured a lot in the gym. That's why I'm like, this is not worth it. Injuries, and people who would do it intentionally, by the way, do keep in mind.
Sounds like you're in a very, very not good gym. That's not supposed to be the atmosphere there at all. So that's unfortunate.
And about like the fact you said, and the thing is, I'm in the gym. I'm known. I was always being known as a person who's always good with amateurs, starters, and everyone, that comes to the gym, they pair them up with me because I don't care if I like beat them or not. I let them, submit me. I teach them actively, I'm kind of like, that's how it should be, It's not that I'm just doing something just fantastic or anything. I'm just doing what's right, But yes, there are egotistical assholes at the same time as well. I get used to you. And about the fact that you said, there are so many sweaty. Yeah, actually got me laugh because I was muted. I don't think people hear my laughter, but yeah, it's true. Like, it's kind of unfortunate that it's still to this day, it's 2022, that there aren't like any accommodations for women to actually feel safe and comfortable to actually learn jiu-jitsu, because let's be real, martial arts is male dominated,
Yeah.
And
I don't want like it. They're all very lovely, all the men love
awesome. Me. That's awesome.
It's just there's like sweat in my face, whether it's from a woman or a man. I was like, I don't know if I'm still here anymore. Like I think I'm good without the sweat, But they were all very nice to me and they were lovely. But yeah,
that's honestly that's awesome.
In general, in my face, I was
yeah, fast. That's a part of. Oh my god, that's a part of things. Some people, not many people, they wear short rash guards, which everyone should honestly, I think, should like wear long rash because for skin issues, Yeah. And were you practicing in gi or no gi, by the way?
Gi.
Oh, this is where we kind of come into it like a cross up. I don't like gi. I'm a no gi person.
Oh, right? I hate no gi. I like to.
Oh, really?
I feel like the gi gives a bit of just, I don't know.
Yes, of course.
Professionalism is wrong or something. It just feels like a different experience with no gi. It feels like you're grabbing people, where like the gi is all the stuff you can do with the lapel and stuff. So.
I mean, this is actually completely subjective because I can't like argue no gi is better because everyone all the time wears jackets and things like that. You could use that even judo as well. In judo, it's completely gi, by the way. There are of course no gi judo techniques, but you get the point. But I like no gi because gi was getting in my way, and I didn't like that. It was, I don't know, it's just maybe me, but no gi was much better. There was no limits. I could just attack. No one would just pull a tricky like bullshit tricky and just just drop me on my ass or something. I could just no gi. I could just much more manageable for me. So I hope everyone enjoy. You came for oil painting, stories, but you just got jiu-jitsu stories. So I hope you enjoyed it as well, and I did. So
yep.
We've reached the final section and question of the podcast, by the way, which is called Final Words. Well, let me explain what that means. Imagine in let's say, in the future, at any point of time in future, right? You had the opportunities to say anything from a human, Kayla Martell, to another human being, and that another human being is anyone who is listening to this podcast at any point of time in future. So in that scenario, what do you have to say? By the way, it doesn't have to be like art advice or anything. It just has to be your time capsule, What would you have to say?
Geez, okay, that seems like it should be something really important. So What is my like time capsule words to say to somebody in the future? Yeah.
Correct.
Sorry, my cat's meowing.
Oh, it's fine.
Let's see. I guess probably look for that bit of magic in life. I guess whatever that means to you. Obviously, for me, it means painting. I think painting is like magic. But, you know, anything that makes your heart sing, basically, that you kind of feel in your soul. I think you just know when that happens. And it takes a lot of different forms and not always art. But I think that is something to be just treasured and is wonderful. So that's all I can think of.
All right. And by the way, we got a little cameo of your chat in the background as well. I mean, that was nice. And yeah, so honestly, it was a really fun conversation. Thank you so much for coming by. And where can people contact you if they had any questions? Is there an Instagram account, okay? I put that in the captions, of course.
Yeah, you just message me on Instagram is all good.
Yeah. All right, cool. So again, thanks so much for coming by. It was a real delight. And thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode or watched it on YouTube. So yeah, thanks so much. Thank you to you guys as well. If there's any comments or suggestions or critiques or just anything, just leave them down in the comments below or just send it to me privately on, I don't know, my podcast page, I guess. And nothing gets left unread. I always say that because it's true. And I value all your inputs. And that's about it, guys and gals and whatever. Like, I don't know, I'm just kind of tired right now, sorry. And yeah, basically, anyway, stay safe, take care, and till next episode. Bye.
Thanks.